All right, testing. Testing. Okay, good, it is working. So, just as a reminder, if you were just tuning in or after the live stream has gone out, then you can always ask questions in the comments and I will gladly answer them in the next video. So just a little bit of a rant right now. I was trying to do this earlier, recording this earlier, but then the headset I was using was the one without the mic working, and I spent hours trying to set up that headset. Anyways, we are currently looking at Crising, also known as 96W. This is what this main video update will be on. Here's a look at our latest unofficial forecast cone overlaid with the potential impacts the system could bring. So looking at it, there's a broad area there. Like there's a quite large area, over half of the Philippines, almost the entirety of Taiwan, and a huge portion of China and Vietnam that could experience marginal impacts. Now these impacts are mostly in the form of rain, and looking at like most of these impact layers, some wind could also be a factor in this as well. Slight impacts as well could be felt for a majority of the Philippines, parts of the southeastern tip of Taiwan, and parts of China and Vietnam, mainly northern Vietnam, that could experience slight impacts again in the form of rain, but also some parts could also experience it in the form of wind as well. Now, looking at moderate impacts, as you can see, it's mostly along the western coast of the Philippines. And again, this is mainly in the form of rainfall. But while looking at the coast of Hainan Island and looking at southern China and northeastern Vietnam, there's also an area of a possibility of moderate impacts, again, mainly in the form of a combination of wind and rain. And looking at the areas of major possibility, like a possibility of major impacts, there's three different areas, and they're all highlighted here in the western Philippines, again, mainly in the form of rainfall. And now looking at the forecast of the system, it is expected to become a tropical storm over the next 12 hours. Again, it may do it sooner, it may take longer than that, but the general consensus is within the next 24 hours, the system should become a tropical cyclone before either touching or going through the northern tip of Luzon, or potentially going towards the Batanes Islands, or going even more north of that, avoiding the islands altogether. Again, the system is so broad that the impacts will be felt well outside of the cone. That's why I try to make these kind of graphics. And looking in towards the next 48 to 72 hours, the system is expected to really start getting going in the South China Sea, potentially becoming a typhoon, maybe Category 1, Category 2. Further intensification can't be ruled out if the system really wants to get going and rapidly intensifies. But a typhoon landfall is expected somewhere along the Chinese coast and potentially Hainan Island. And then looking forward towards the 5 days 5 day forecast, it should be around a tropical storm, maybe a high end at that point, moving into Vietnam. So that's a look at the current forecast of it. And again, to those watching, if you have any questions, just be sure to let me know, and I will answer them later in the stream. And here's a look at the global tropical outlook right now, looking at everything across the world. So we currently have, of course, Invest 93L could develop near Louisiana. We have of course, 96W Crising expected. It has an 80% chance of developing within the next 48 hours and a 90% chance within the next 5 days. There could also be another Western Pacific disturbance that has a 40% chance of developing, mainly near the Philippines and Taiwan, over the next 7 days, and also another disturbance near Guam and the Northern Mariana Islands with a 10% chance of developing. Looking in the North Indian Ocean, we have the remnants of a land depression, and we now have a tropical storm now over India. That's just a very weak one, moving inland. And then also we have a rare southern hemisphere disturbance, or southern hemisphere tropical cyclone, 01S, which is expected to remain out to sea. So that's a look at the current look at things. 96W is the reason we're currently in code pink, and 93L is currently in code yellow. Now looking at the satellite of Crising, we can see that it has a very broad circulation. It's not that like completely well defined to a single point. It's just a broad circulation all around it. And as you can see, though, a lot of the thunderstorms are off towards the western side of it, just pounding the Philippines with heavy rainfall. And that will be the story for multiple days as the system begins moving northwest towards, again, generally towards northern Luzon or the Batanes Islands. Now, here looking at the overall convection right now of it, as you can see, the center is pretty bare of any major thunderstorms. Again, most of them are off towards the west, and that has been moving into the central Philippines. All right, now taking a look at the scatterometer data of it showing the general wind direction here, we can see that there is a general center down here. There's light winds all around here, so it's not exactly defined to a single point, but we can see that the winds off towards the west are going down towards the south, and we see from the south they're going to the east there, and then they curve around back to the north, and then back to the west. So there is a broad circulation in here. It is a closed circulation, but it's not that well defined yet. And we should see this get better defined over the next 24 hours or so. Now, taking a look at the wind shear of this system, we can see that it is quite low where the center of the system is, but as you can see over off towards the west, there is heavy wind shear, and that's why we're getting all these thunderstorms being blown off well to the west of the center. But the system is in a healthy environment, so that's why we should see development over the next 24 hours. That's denoted in this green color here. And now taking a look at its distance from land areas. Oops, sorry about that. Forgot about this. It is currently around, oh, that's in nautical miles. I meant to do kilometers. There we go. So the center of it is roughly around 800 kilometers away from Manila, and roughly around 850 to around 950 kilometers away from where it could eventually make landfall in the northern Luzon or the Batanes Islands. And then looking at around Hong Kong area, it is currently around 1,800 kilometers away, around 2,000 kilometers away from Hainan Island, and around 2,400 kilometers away from northern Vietnam, where it eventually could make landfall. What does this mean? Okay. Now, looking at the wind shear model, like just showing the general development over time. Oh, wait, no, I meant to do. Oh, sorry, I thought that this was. I don't know why I have that exactly, but this will show the general wind shear of it as we go forth and forward in time. It is going to still be in a very monsoonal system. It is going to be quite broad. We see a lot of shear on the southern side of it, so what this is going to do is this is going to push most of the thunderstorms over the Philippines for multiple days. This is 2 days from now, and it's still going on. Looking for towards the 3-day mark, it is still happening. But overall, this system is going to be in a pocket of lower wind shear, which should help it develop, and especially by the time it reaches the China, Hong Kong area, before eventually being in a generally unfavorable environment. Of course, it's already over land by then. Now looking at the European model, I'm going to go through the general models and showing what's happening. So this is currently where it's at right now, as of, just going to make sure this is as of Thursday morning for you all. It's still a very broad system, but as we go towards Thursday night, again, it's a broad system, but should most likely be a tropical cyclone at that point. And then if we go towards Friday morning, we got a heavy band of rain impacting the Batanes Islands in northeastern Luzon. Moving towards Friday night, we have the system crossing the Batanes Islands and now is entering into the South China Sea. Sunday morning, we have the system, of course, intensifying, and then as we go forth in time throughout multiple days, the system could go on to become a typhoon as it moves in between Hainan Island, enters the Gulf of Tonkin, and then towards Vietnam over the next 5 days or so. And as we can see here as well, the model also shows a potential new typhoon trying to develop near Taiwan. Looking at the Canadian model, it's generally the same story, goes through the Batanes Islands, and then this one, though, has it more so north and has it going straight for Hong Kong. Again, that is a possibility. It's just more so the northernmost solution. Now, looking at the German model, the system also again has the system near the Batanes Islands, has it more so aligned with the European run, has it as a Category 1 or Category 2 by the time it makes landfall in China, and then goes inland near Vietnam as mostly just a weak typhoon or a high-end tropical storm. Now, looking at the ensemble solutions of this, we have the European ensembles. Again, generally showing that around half of them have the system making landfall in Luzon, and then the other half has it making landfall or just moving north of Luzon, whether it makes landfall in the Batanes Islands or just goes through the Philippine Strait. And then over the next 3 days or so, generally showing that it could become a typhoon, or more likely than not become a typhoon, and then mainly make landfall anywhere from Hong Kong towards around Hainan Island, and then moving in through Vietnam, and then through Thailand and those general areas. And also showing that other potential disturbance forming around Taiwan. And here's a look at the general consensus again of the European ensembles, and then the strike probabilities. Again, it's around a 25 to 50% for the northern coast of Luzon, and including the Batanes Islands, and again around a 25 to 50% along the coast of Hong Kong, and then as well for China and Vietnam. Now, looking at the American ensembles, again it shows the system pretty much the same exact track there, with it impacting the potentially going through the Philippine Strait before then entering into the South China Sea. Generally has it more southward, not really impacting Hong Kong as much, just mainly going for Hainan Island and Vietnam. And again, here's a look at those general ensembles here. We're mainly focusing on these. This right here is the other disturbance, which could eventually become a typhoon. That is a possibility. We'll cover that over the coming days. But yeah, generally has it becoming a potential typhoon, maybe even major typhoon by the time it reaches Hainan Island, and then eventually moving inland towards Vietnam. Now let's take a look at the impacts that the system could bring. This is the European run, and this is why we're expecting possibly major impacts out of this. Again, over the Philippines, we could see over a foot of rainfall, nearly around 400 millimeters of rain in some areas along the western coast of the Philippines, mainly in the mountainous terrain. And then going forward in time, it could deliver upwards of again 400 millimeters for the northern tip of Hainan Island, and areas just offshore could receive up to 500 to 600 millimeters of rain. This is again generally over the next 5 days. In Vietnam, around 200 to 300 millimeters of rain, and this is just over the next 5 days. There could be heavier rain amounts going from day 5 to day 7 as the system moves over that general area. Now, again, this is just the European run. Looking at the American run, okay, I thought it would cooperate with me there. Okay. Looking at the American run here, again, it shows the northwestern tip of Luzon getting around 400 millimeters of rain. This is again a lower resolution model, so keep that in mind. And then Hainan Island as well gets around 400 millimeters in this run. Okay. And now looking at the German model, if it wants to load. I don't know if it's going to cooperate. There we go. This one shows a generally less amount of rain, only around 50 to 100 millimeters of rain for most of the Philippines. But this one again gives Manila around 150 to 200 millimeters of rain. Speaking of which, looking at the European run, Manila also gets around 150 to 200 millimeters of rain. But the German model wants Hainan Island to also get around 500 millimeters of rain along the east coast. In some areas, again, 400 to 500 millimeters of rain. This could deliver moderate to major impacts in these areas in terms of flooding. So it's not just the wind that is going to be a problem. And then just offshore, having 500 to 600 millimeters of rainfall, hoping that stays offshore and not on land. Now let's take a look at the latest Pagasa advisory in its cone. There we go. So again, here it is as of Thursday morning. By Thursday night, it should, or Thursday evening, it should, or around afternoon time, it should become a tropical storm. And then over the next 24, 48 hours, should eventually become a severe tropical storm. This one has it more so making landfall over Luzon as a severe tropical storm roughly on overnight on Friday into Saturday morning. And by Saturday afternoon, it should be starting to move away from the Philippines. Just remember, the system is going to be so broad, it's going to be delivering lots of rain and thunderstorms across the northern half of the Philippines. And then also along the southern half of Taiwan as well. And by around Monday morning, overnight, it should become a typhoon and still remain a typhoon by around Tuesday morning. Now remember, this is the cone of uncertainty of where the center could go. And as you can see, a lot of areas could receive a typhoon landfall. It all depends on where it eventually goes to. But as a reminder, though, these don't show the whole impacts. The impacts could happen well outside of the center of that cone. But again, there is signal warnings in effect, signal 1 warnings in effect for parts of Luzon, including Cagayan, including Babuyan Islands, Isabela, the northeastern portion of the Aurora, Quirino, Kalinga, the eastern portion of Mountain Province, the eastern portion of Ifuego, and Apayao. For Visayas and Mindanao, there's no signal warnings. But yes, signal 1 warning is in effect, mainly around winds of 39 to 61 kilometers an hour over the next 36 hours. There's not going to be a lot of damage, mainly in this, at least officially. There could be damage, though, if the system decides to get stronger. But the precautionary measures, mainly just stay up to date at this point, and then also just make sure that your house is ready to go. Everything outside that could be blown around, maybe bring that inside. But yeah, again, just keep watching the system over the next few days if you're in the northern Philippines. For again, anyone else in the marginal or slight impact area, just keep monitoring for updates, especially if you're in the area, the possibility of moderate impacts here, as this area could get upgraded to major impacts. So just keep an eye on things. But yeah, that's mostly it. If you have any questions, you can ask them in the stream chat, and if you're watching after the stream goes live, as it becomes a video, then you can ask them in the comments, and I will gladly answer it in the next video. Alright, so BingyBong12 says, what time is it where you are? It is around 10:03 p.m. for me right now, and for the Philippines it's 10:03 a.m., so I'm just in the complete opposite side of the world right now. Just glad to be doing coverage to help those stay prepared. But yeah, what I was saying earlier in the beginning of the video, these headphones that I got, pretty much for some reason they just twist in on itself and then the cord gets torn up. So I was like, I'm gonna wrap this thing around the cord, and it takes like a good couple of hours to do. And it just mainly prevents it from ripping, and so it prolongs the lifespan of the headphones. So I decided to do that. And just due to events last night, I pretty much had the headphones mixed up. I had like two things of headphones. One the mic didn't work on, and that's the one I was trying to stream with. And that was the one I spent roughly 2 hours wrapping the thing around. And so I swore that that was the correct headset, but it wasn't. As you can clearly tell, you can hear me with this headset. And so, yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do now. I spent 2 hours for nothing, pretty much. I don't know why the mic just refuses to work on that headset. I've tried it, and then it just doesn't want to cooperate. Alright, so I guess that about does it. Again, if you have any questions and you're watching this after the stream, you can just ask them in the comments and I will gladly answer them in the next video. But yeah, I'll keep you all updated as best as I can. and I will see you in the next update. Stay safe.